Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's special council meeting for Wednesday, January 2nd, the year 2019. This meeting has been called to order by your council president. We are here today to discuss one issue only, but let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, roll call of attendance.
First District Councilwoman Myrna Maldonado. Second District Councilman Lenny Francisci.
Present.
Third District Councilwoman Brenda Walker. Fourth District Councilwoman Christine Vasquez.
Present.
Fifth District Councilman Robert Garcia. Sixth District Councilwoman Gilda Orange.
Present.
Councilman at Large Emiliano Perez.
Present.
Councilman at Large Kenneth Monroe. Council President Richard Medina.
Present. We do have a quorum. Before we get started, as I mentioned, there's only one item on this agenda. Mr. Buscemi, how are we going to catalog this item, or how would you refer to this item? Is this a docket? Is this
I would, Mr. President and members of the council, recommend that the council refer to it as the encumbered 2018 open purchase orders. And Mr. Gomez is here to explain what the item is and the specific action that is needed by the council. And I'll tell you ahead of time, this does not need a vote, but I'm going to recommend a motion for us to accept this into the record and to be logged into our minutes of the City Council based on the presentation that Mr. Gomez makes.
Is this item required to be enumerated?
No, I don't think it needs any enumeration other than to identify it in a little more detail than what's listed on the agenda. Rather than open PO report, I would identify it in the minutes as the 2018 encumbered open purchase orders. These are purchase orders that are simply being carried forward into 2019. They'll be paid this year, but they'll be paid out of 2018 budget funds.
Okay, and for the record, Mr. Gomez, this item was not heard on the December 17th meeting for the lack of someone from your office being here to explain what we were being presented with.
But it's almost
There's
like
100+ pages in this ream of paper, adding over $34 million, and I, for one, was not comfortable with it, nor were any of my colleagues. So let's not point the finger at this chair or any of my colleagues here today for not addressing this. If it was important to you, sir, you should have been here.
well, in reply, we do present this every year. I know we've had members of the council that have been here for several years. It's always a formality. Matter of fact, the state it's a suggestion that is brought before to inform the council that we're carrying over encumbrances. The reason, if you decide to send it to the council, then the council puts it in minutes. I believe a lot of towns and cities actually don't even send it to the council. But here, as part of being open, we send it to the council. And it's like our warrants. We send it Wednesday. There's a deadline set by the council. And it's just like the warrants. If you had a question, and I've discussed this with past presidents of the council, if you have a question on any issue on the warrants or even this, you put us and let us know. I agree with you. There's a lot of items on there. If you had pulled one PO and said, police department, they have one for 50-something thousand for their gun range, and you wanted details, and I would have him here. He knows more about that, what's going on with their PO. Because these are POs that were processed by a board, by the council, they've been approved. It's at the PO stage already. Everything was already approved. Matter of fact, you're going to approve them again when you get the warrant. Because the only reason they're still open, because they haven't been invoiced. There's some from January of 18, and the reason they're still open, because that company hasn't completed the project, and they have an invoice. Once they invoices, some of you might know the processes, then we start the claim, then it goes on the warrant for your meeting. So then you have not only this, it's still not approved until you pass it on a warrant. So it's like a formality. We didn't mean any disrespect to your council by not being here. We just didn't get a reply, because I always check, has anybody called on anything on the warrants, or, like you usually pass, and if no, then it means that you guys looked through it, that you're satisfied with it, and there's no reason to call somebody. Because if you did pull something, like I said, there's so many things on the warrants. If you notice now, we have somebody here for every ordinance, every resolution to speak on it. But the warrants, yeah, there's hundreds of items. So unless you tell us which one you want to pull, we'll have everybody associated with that. So there was no, I'm not blaming anybody. We just didn't realize that there are going to be questions. Because I heard one question was, well, we're uncomfortable that they might use this PO and switch it to something else. And that's why I brought this here. In fact, I don't know if I gave you a sheet. That's for State Board of Accounts. It actually came in December. The second page kind of tells you, goes over on encumbrances. And if you look on the last paragraph there, it says, keep in mind appropriation encumbered and carried forward can be used for no other purpose other than the purchase order or the contract for which they're appropriated. So by law, we can't say, okay, we're going to close out this PO and be sneaky and use it for something else. So everything is on the open. We actually went an extra step by giving it to the council, because like I said, some cities and towns, it's a formality just of, bookkeeping. But if you do give it to the council, then the State Board of Accounts says, okay, the council, all they have to do is enter it into the minutes, and it mentions that in there. So, and that's the only thing. There was no, on our part, there was no disrespect. We just thought it was in there, it's always been there, it's never been questioned in the past, that you guys had no questions. And that's the only problem.
Well, if the mayor deemed it necessary for us to meet today, there's got to be a reason for it.
Well, there is a reason. The reason is, if we close them all out, we have to everybody has to start the process again to open up a PO. So it's almost like going through all the paperwork and opening up these POs again. So every department, for every PO that's submitted, we would have to, go through the process. I know the fire department put in for their training center. That's an open PO, so they would have to start from the beginning, bring everything again, and create almost a new PO. It's like I said, it's more of a paperwork issue for us, So.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Gomez? Councilwoman Warren?
Go ahead, maybe.
President, can I ask a procedural
Yes, please.
question? Now, some of these open POs, especially the ones that are almost a year old now, I presume they actually won't get an accompanying invoice. The very first one is one from McShane's in January. Either something was ordered for $785 or it wasn't. If we haven't had an invoice in a year, presume that the PO will get closed out.
Well, there's another issue. There's another issue, and at the Board of Works, we have a section of Board of Works for late invoices. A lot of times, these companies will say they invoice this, and they mail it to the wrong address, made it to the wrong department. So at the Board of Works, we address POs we actually have some POs that were from the previous year, and they come in and they describe to us what the reasoning was. So then it takes, the State Board of Accounts requires the Board of Works to have a hearing, and that's why it's part of our Board of Works meeting. If you look at our minutes, or it's even on TV, we have a section on late invoices. And there we address it, and the department has to give the reason. They also have to tell us that the work was completed satisfactory, and then we approve it. So that's why you'll see some like that for that amount.
So is it possible if there's a procedure where after a year, PO is eliminated? We don't have POs that are three years old.
No, we asked the departments are the ones that asked us which ones they wanted encumbered. So in November, we sent out an email telling every department, which ones do you want encumbered? Because if you don't want encumbered, we close them out. So they're the ones that tell us. So they might, I know when I was fire chief, I would call my vendors and say, look, I got this PO. Are you gonna, we're gonna close them out if you're not gonna, perform the service or something or whatever. It's unusual. I personally couldn't see why, if someone got a PO in January and it went the entire year and they haven't done anything, if I was in that department, I would have been calling them saying, hey, we're gonna close this out and get somebody else. So, but that's why you have the Board of Works where they're brought there. But these are ones that the departments want to open. We don't just say, okay, we're gonna keep them all open. We actually sit down and say, which ones do you want encumbered? So,
Councilman Perez.
I have a question more for Mr. Allegre, for Mr. Buscemi. Mr. Buscemi, I'm understanding that this doesn't even need to get approved by the council. Does it, or does it not need council approval?
According to the State Board of Accounts, they've issued guidance, and I think we want to follow their guidance because their guidance is good practice. They've issued guidance that simply says these items should be collected, as they have been on the document that the council members have, as encumbered 2018 items of already appropriated funds. You've already appropriated the funds to pay these accounts if the vendor performs the service and if the vendor then properly bills the city to receive payment. And that this listing of the encumbered open purchase orders from 2018 simply be made a part of the minutes. So you don't need to vote to approve. You're right, Councilman, but I suggest a motion such as the council accepts the encumbered 2018 open purchase orders as submitted as a matter of record. Something simple like that.
Then I'm sorry,
Because the Board of Accounts, Councilman, does ask that it be made part of the minutes.
okay, and as a follow-up, does the date have an impact? It's already past January 1st. We're already into
We
2019.
can't go back, so we're going to take the action today, and since approval is not required, doing it today doesn't.
Doesn't matter because there is,
Absolutely.
once again, just for the record, legally, there's no approval required.
That is correct. So the council has not missed any approval deadline because there is no approval required. Accept them as a matter of record. That's my recommendation.
and
Thank you.
on our side, the reports we submit to State Board of Accounts and we enter, State Board of Accounts tells us we have this open window. If it wasn't done in December, and if you do it the first few days, then you could still submit the reports, with whether you cut out the encumbrance or whatever. But I just like to say, even though we've discussed it, whether we should send it to council or not, our view is send it to the council, because then we're more open, you could see what's open, and you have any questions on it, then you can ask us. I don't see a downside to not sending it to you, but it's just a formality.
Councilwoman Orange.
I just had one question. Then, in other words, the clerk's office, all they had to do was to read it into the minutes that this was an open POs for 2018. And then that's all they would have had to do was to read it into the minutes, if it has to just be in the minutes, right?
That's right. Had they known that that was the only action requested by the State Board of Accounts, that's all that would have needed to have been done. But you'll recall, we didn't know that at the
All right.
previous
So we
meeting.
know for the future, all they have to do is read it into the minutes.
In the past years, I think they just did it automatic, nobody really had questions on it, so.
Okay.
I believe that action was taken. I mean, it was mentioned at the meeting, part of the minutes, that nobody made a motion to approve. So you confuse me even more. Why are we here today?
Because I just think that whenever something comes up before the council, we figure that it has to have an action.
Correct.
And since it wasn't, nobody here to say you don't really have to take action, it just has to be read into the minutes. If you have any questions, go to the controller's office. I think, but since we didn't have that. But anyway, we can move on.
And I believe that if maybe we just knew that this was something that's being encumbered, I don't think we would have had a problem with it.
You're You're not taking action today to encumber these funds. These funds have already previously been encumbered from prior appropriations. The only thing you would do today is to accept the listing as part of the minutes.
I'll make a motion that we accept the
Second.
2018 open PO report.
Second motion, Mr. President.
Motion on the floor by Councilwoman Orange, properly seconded by Councilman Perez to enter into the minutes the encumbered items and open purchase order dated December 12th, year 2018. Any questions on that motion? Madam Clerk, roll call to accept this on the minutes.
Franceschi?
Yes.
Vasquez?
Yes.
Orange?
Yes.
Perez?
Yes.
Medina?
Yes. That concludes all items on today's agenda. The chair will now accept the motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. President.
Second.
Roll call to adjourn.
Franceschi?
Yes.
Vasquez?
Yes.
Orange?
Yes.
Perez?
Yes.
Medina?
Yes, meeting is adjourned.